Cindy. I just wondered if we were going to end up being the only two. Oh, I guess I won't. There's Jean. I can see Jean. So I'll stay on the camera. I didn't want to be the only one.
No, for sure not. But just to this is modeled on kind of how the tools call works. So number one, we're being recorded, so everybody knows that. And number two, the idea is to try and replicate the around the table experience. So having camera on and just jumping in whenever we want to start talking is perfectly accepted and encouraged, in fact. So.
And I suppose you need to record it for others to be able to see later anyway. So I guess we can be your little audience.
Well, hopefully it'll be an interactive conversation, at least at some point. I am going to move to that mode. And I'm kind of testing out whether sharing my screen is helpful or not. I will put that in there.
So it might be helpful for the recording, but otherwise I have my own screen open.
Yeah. We'll try it this way, see how it goes. In the tools call, we don't do it. You just have people follow along. So, but there's usually a few more people there. Hey, Rich, we see you're here. Feel free to share video and audio. I think we're going to be a pretty small group. Some folks have sent regrets.
Yeah, we have the cleaners here, so I'm up in the bedroom and it's chaos and noisy. So I think I'll just, I was thinking, like the tools talk, we usually like to have them on, but I'll do that once it's feasible.
And perfectly makes sense. Yeah, we'll wait a few more minutes, let people join. Yeah. Well, here we go, Cindy. Cindy, you're also welcome to join full video and everything. We're trying out whether or not sharing the notes is useful or not. Rich is not on video because the situation where he is not conducive to video, but we know he's here.
So what I'm seeing right now is just a black rectangle.
Really?
That is also what I see.
Wow, that's quite interesting.
Yeah, same here. FYI.
Oh yeah, it looks like that stream has stalled out. Okay, well, I don't know. It could be a weird browser thing or something. I'm going to stop sharing it then because it sounds like over half the people are not intended. So I'll just point people to the chat where you can open in your own browser window a link to the notes, the agenda/notes for the call. So feel free to add your name to this. I'll just start adding names until people jump in. I'll add Rich's because he's in a reduced capability environment. And that'll give us a few minutes to catch up with people wanting to join. Somebody's pinging me. Let's see if it's okay. Well, we're almost 5 after the hour, so I'm going to just get started. I want to thank everybody for joining. Just to say again, we're Robert's on the way. Fantastic. Testing the window of join. So Robert, if you can hear us, this is intended to be modeled on the tools team calls, which means that everybody's free and encouraged to share video as they'd like, and to jump in as we run through it's supposed to be a conversation. So I have shared in the chat the link to the notes and agenda for this meeting, and if anybody doesn't have it, please raise your hand or just shout. And with that, I think we'll get started because we're about 5 after the hour now. So welcome. This, again, third time it's being recorded. So for folks who weren't able to join in person, this recording should capture everything we talk about here, and you're encouraged to send questions and follow-up comments after the meeting is over. So always happy to receive those. I don't know if folks have had a chance to take a look at the agenda document, but I'll pause now to see if anybody has items that they would like to add or reorder or move to a different section. Okay. Then I'll just start going through. And again, for folks who may be viewing for the first time, this meeting is the IETF LLCCOMMS meeting. So they're really focused on providing visibility, input, discussion about LLCCOMMS related activities at pretty much the tactical level. They're complementary to the Education and Outreach Directorate, which is under the Gen area of the IETF, so definitely a different focus than that. And yeah, so we're recording it, and notes in the video will be posted publicly afterwards. Clarification, comms in this context is marketing, basically, and it doesn't actually include a lot of the commercial aspects or aspects of marketing that you would normally associate with in a commercial environment. So we don't have things like a division between marketing and advertising or marketing and sales. There isn't that sort of kind of same environment as in a commercial organization. And with that, we'll hop into the hot topics portion of the meeting. And the idea here is that there are a couple of items that I've in the notes provided some detail about, and I'll talk through them, but really, and then pause at the end of each item. And the idea here is to really spark discussion and questions that for further clarification or perhaps ideas about different ways to approach the things. So feel free to just jump in as we go through these. Yeah, so the first one is the social media review. So I haven't provided the background here, but in the notes, but the background is that the social media presence and approach for the IETF and IAB and IRTF and RFC editor has kind of been organic, I think is the nice way to say this. So there hasn't really been an overall cohesive way of everything that's going on. Sort of each individual group has kind of done its own thing. And I think that there's some value in collecting all of these things that have emerged together, particularly in the light of the changing environment and the relative effort that now we have, I think, upward of a dozen different channels that we feed. So the idea here is to sort of get a sense of what we're doing and then try and understand what makes sense going forward and make adjustments. As an example, I think the RPC or the RFC editor, sorry, has an automated feed when RFCs are published to right now, I think it's X, and Gene will correct me.
So to X, I just created an X account so I can see the RFC editor stream there. It's not currently updating. We also, and what it should be showing is when we publish an RFC, it just provides the RFC number, the title, and a bit of the abstract. And we do similar things with Mastodon, and we are looking at doing this with Blue Sky.
Cool. And the Mastodon feed works at the moment?
I am checking.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I have. I follow the RC editor on Mastodon, and I've seen the announcements. This is
Okay.
Rich, so yes, it works.
Yes, I see it's working.
Fantastic. So I think that's an example of where something started kind of just almost on a volunteer basis on one platform as it can evolve, and just seeing how things are going. Similarly, I think, for example, the IRTF approach has been the chair decides kind of what gets posted on that stream mostly, but so I've been working with the current chair to sort of document what it might look like going forward. And so the initial run is done. We kind of know what accounts there are on which platforms, what the first order reach is, so things like followers. And some of you have heard me say this before, like one of the things that found out is that YouTube is actually one of the largest or the largest presence we have on a platform in terms of followers. We have almost 10,000 people who follow the IETF on YouTube or subscribe. So, small still, like compared to the big YouTube personalities, but compared to other places in the social media sphere, it's pretty big. And then also things like Mastodon, we had an IETF had a presence on there beginning of last year, maybe a little bit earlier. And then Bluetooth much more recently, but now we see that Bluetooth, we have a bigger community on Bluetooth than on Mastodon. So anyway, so it's those kinds of things we're trying to figure out what makes sense in terms of which channels to really focus on, and also what the strategy should be for that. Yeah, I'm curious if folks have heard anything or have personal experience with how they've been seeing the IETF or IAB or IRTF show up on social media. People checking. So you probably have noticed, for example, that none of those organizations have a presence on either Instagram or TikTok. So when you've been looking through your feeds on those platforms, you haven't seen anything. That's because we're not there. Similarly, things like Reddit. There is a subreddit for IETF, but we don't really participate there. So anyway, so these are all things to look at, I think, and in one small example, I've been talking with Stephanie McCammon, who is the I'm not going to get her title right, but basically in charge of meeting operations and sponsorship for the IETF, about doing something, doing a video for the IETF YouTube channel, given its reach, and that would appeal to potential participants or potential supporters. So we haven't really produced that kind of video in a long time, but it might be an opportunity for us to get value out of that channel. Okay. Yeah, if folks have questions that comes along, feel free to pop them in the chat or just pipe up and let me know. The second item here is just wanted to flag that we're looking at some very small scale experiments with promoting the IETF via paid opportunities. So these are super low cost. I think we had previously done something like this for Google Ads. And I think our overall spend for Google Ads to promote a particular IETF meeting was something like $25. So most of it has to do in the setup and the keyword optimization and those kinds of things where you, or the AdWord optimization. But we could also track that the click-through rate for those ads were much higher than standard. I don't remember the exact numbers, but they were 2 or 3 times higher than the standard CTR for that kind of thing was. And we could see that they were getting to the intended pages. So like for a meeting, they would link to the main, we could see them coming into the main meeting page. But we didn't know whether or not that actually led to someone signing up for the meeting. And we still would need to tease apart whether or not that sign up would be a sign up we would have already gotten some other way, or if it was an additional one. Anyway, so these are very, very small scale experiments just to help tease out those kinds of issues and understand what the opportunities are. Not expecting it to be a big thing. Yeah, so Google AdWords, promoting on Facebook, something else we did, those kinds of things. And on the order of, in terms of the additional spend, small numbers of US dollars, mostly about building the expertise and understanding about how it might work for us if we were to think about it more broadly. Or it could be just a small part of our marketing mix overall. See nobody breaking out on that one. So yeah. Great. Well, then the last one that is in this area, sort of the hot topics area. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, there are two more. This one is the IETF update. So just to pull out a few things that are underway in terms of the content for the updates to the www.ietf.org site. We're taking a look at things like the technologies section, or used to be called topics of interest, with the idea that those definitely need to be refreshed. Have already gotten some feedback about alternative thinking to that approach. But the main point here is that those sections are intended to be to relate to either non-IETF participants, that is people who will never participate in the IETF, like, well, now it's a little harder to say this maybe, but folks like policymakers or the managers of IETF participants, so people for whom it's important that the IETF be seen as relevant, but who may not dive into a working group to help develop a specification. And the approach there that's based on the research we did when we initially built the site is that the way the IETF thinks about things or talks about things in areas of technology, the way it's clustered areas, isn't the way that the rest of the world talks about it. So the example I give in this here is the Internet of Things. Cuts across a lot of IETF technical areas. There is an Internet of Things directorate. But some of the other, after an initial review, like some of the other current technologies like automated network management, maybe not the best way to, or sort of the top kind of topics, most widely understood topics. So we're just taking a look at that. And then there's some possible connection with the idea of labeling. I think they used labels or tagging various IETF artifacts like RFCs or working groups or so forth, to make them more findable. Warren Kumari had worked on a very, what do they call it, folksonomy-based approach where working group chairs could volunteer what the industry keywords were for their particular working groups, put them into a Google sheet, and then generated a kind of with a almost pivot table to come up with which working groups had which tags associated with it, and vice versa, which tags were affiliated with which working groups, so that I mean, if you were interested in DNS, you would know that DNSOP is a working group that you should go to. That's pretty obvious, but there are some working group acronyms that don't immediately explain what technologies they're related to. So anyway, this is sort of the idea that there might be a meshing point between these kinds of things, where we, for example, tag blog posts with these kinds of tags as well.
So just to jump in, RFCs have keywords associated with them in the metadata, but and we do expose this on the RFC editor website, but not necessarily as like friendly tags. They are things you can type into search and pull things up that have been tagged that. But having tag clouds or No, and I've seen the discussions about this also. Um, and I know that it does get bogged down sometimes with people arguing over which tags should be applied or
Hmm.
how well to um, police the use of the tags. Uh, how rigorous do you want to be or loose with? Oh yeah, this is a DNS thing. So
Um, I should know more about this than I do. Can you remind me who decides which tags to apply to an RFC?
the authors do. So the RPC will ask, what keywords would you like to use with your document, and the authors supply or don't supply, because we ask for if you have any keywords outside of the document title, what would you like to apply? But there's not any, as I said, there's no um, data cleanup on the tags. So, it's whatever the authors want to use.
Is there a controlled vocabulary with those tags, or is it?
No, no.
I see.
And that was that was the phrase I was looking for. Yes, no controlled vocabulary.
Okay. So if I understand it correctly, basically you say what keyword should be applied to the RFC, and the authors say should definitely be cats, but not dogs, and maybe fish. And so those would be part of the keywords.
Um, well, they authors haven't said don't use keywords. They just come back with it should be cats, fish, and paper cups, or whatever. So, and we go, yep, we will add that to the database, and in V3 XML, they get enclosed in an XML tag. So,
Okay. So they are actually embedded in the documents.
yes, in the XML.
Very cool. Or interesting anyway. Okay. That's super helpful. Anybody else have questions or comments about this idea? Either generally the technology sort of top level, or specifically how keywords or tags might be thought about. Okay. Well, this leads a little bit into the blog post plans, because I mentioned that one option, if we have something like tags or keywords, that we could use them in on blog posts. And one of the things that we're really working on blog posts is to make them much more have a higher tempo of technology or work related blog posts, where the work is not or let me say it this way: the work is means here things like IAB programs or IAB workshops or new working groups or RFCs being published, or perhaps research groups being spun up, or some milestone in the process of the work of IAB, IRTF, or IETF. So to focus on that, and we've had a variety of those in the last year. Some of them have been volunteers. So there's a person who worked heavily on, I think it was a JSON related specification, who authored a really long, quite detailed blog post on his own. And that was really pretty cool. But most of the time it requires working pretty closely with authors and, either authors of IRCs or working group chairs or IRTF research group chairs to help get what they would like to talk about into a blog format. And the reason that the blog format part is important is because the blog posts themselves are supposed to be more broadly accessible, not just to the specialist technologists that are working on the area already. So, yeah, so that's something we're working at. It's resource constrained at the moment. It takes quite a bit of work to do this. So we're looking at ways to either streamline the process or possibly consider other resources. Yeah, so that's going on. Any questions about that or any thoughts at all about the www site?
Could you provide some examples of like ideas for streamlining the process? Things you're kicking around?
Yeah. ChatGPT, one idea? No, not I'm teasing about that. Don't have any really good ones. So one of the things that we did do was provide, we have a template, a Google Doc template, and and we have sort of that template includes pointers to previous blog posts, different formats like workshop report for IB, or perhaps a technology update like TLS 1.3 chairs did a really great update on TLS 1.3 when the RFC was published several years ago, but it provides a good model. So it gives, so there's that. To be honest, there's not, it requires editorial, it requires some editorial energy that a lot of times the proponents, are just busy. So, yeah, open to good ideas there, I guess.
Well, providing templates and pointing to good examples is a good start. You also mentioned possibly looking at adding resources to it. Would this be like editors or a technical writer?
Yeah, we've had a little bit of trial of those last year, engaging a couple of technical writers to help with a few of the items. And I would say the IETF environment is pretty challenging for a lot of technical writers who are used to writing pieces for companies or other organizations where, how should I say this? Sort of the marketing angle is quite clear. So getting people into sort of IETF mode, there's a curve that they need to climb to get there, and the people, the content experts who are involved are rightfully so very protective of accuracy. So a lot of times it takes a number more back and forth than I've experienced in other organizations to get the technical details exactly right, but still presented in a way that's understandable to a broader audience. Mm-hmm. So short answer to your question is, yep, we've tried it, and it seems like if that's something that we're going to go forward with, it'd be good to have a few folks who have already climbed that curve, so that they can start at the having the general understanding about the IETF already in hand. Also looking for if people have suggestions about individuals or.
I'm not volunteering yet, but it's like, wait, I could do this.
Yeah. That's also my natural instinct, but yeah. So anyway, I think that's actually an important this general aspect about the IETF being super interested in technical fidelity is a defining characteristic of the IETF. So we don't want to lose it, don't want to water it down. There is an interesting example that happened last year, where there was a technical writer at at Cisco who wrote a pretty good piece, and they offered it for publication on the IETF blog. And so that was a really interesting model. It's still, I think it took so much effort for that person to get it through compared to the other channels that they published on in Cisco platforms, that they're actually not interested in doing it anymore. But it was interesting to see. So it isn't, yeah. Anyway, but it was a good experience. Okay. So real quickly, I just want to touch on a couple of things that are happening outside the www.ietf.org world. rfceditor.org is undergoing a rework, and there's been email traffic on the RSWG list about that. And there's, I think the repo is public. There's a GitHub repo that you can take a look at, see what things are going on there. Pretty exciting, I think. Really good set of work going on for that. So I'm really interested to see how that goes. I don't know, Jean, do you want to say anything more about that?
Sure. So what was brought up on the RSWG point mailing list, and this has been a long-running discussion. When the RPC updates references and the RFCs to be, we point to what is called the info page of an RFC. The info page is a front page that provides information about, which stream the document came from, who the authors are, if it's been obsoleted, updated, and then the reader clicks a link, picks the format that they want to read the document in, text, HTML, PDF. Then they get to see the actual text. Participants in the IETF want the text. They want to click the link and have that shown immediately and not click through an info page. So Genius of the End, the RFC editor website revamp, will have both the text and the meta information that everybody needs. So yeah, and on RSWG, they're like, oh, yeah, nice. So yes, looking forward to the new site. And the URLs won't change, right? So you can use an info URL and you will be presented with the RFC text and the metadata.
Yeah. Okay, just capturing that in notes. Plus, it uses more blue, which is what I like.
And a lot of engineers like blue. That's a, yeah. And I like the way it looks also.
Yeah, it's a nice clean look. And it works on mobile and a lot of other things that are really, really...
Yes, it works on mobile. Our website currently does not look good on mobile. However, most of the browser clients that access the RFC editor website are not mobile. Don't have it in the exact percentage stored in my head, but I want to say like less than 10% of the visits are via mobile clients.
Chicken or egg there, though, Jean? Chicken or egg?
Yes. I'm sure we will have more mobile clients when we become mobile friendly.
Cool. Awesome. Any questions about that?
So just to clarify, by mobile, what do you mean? My laptop is pretty mobile. You mean phones?
Phones, yes.
Okay,
Very
and
small
then iPads are, of course, sort of in the middle, which you probably can't distinguish.
You can do, because the information sent to the, well, at least if folks are sharing that information, that is part of the information they share about their browsing experience. So you can somewhat tease that out. So you might be using an Apple TV or Google or Chrome TV or whatever they call it. Yeah, so you get information about the hardware device.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks, Bob. Similarly, the IPMC, IETF Intellectual Property Management Corporation, I guess I should add to the notes because that's, somebody's going to correct me if I've got that wrong. The IPMC, previously, the artist previously known as the IETF Trust, is also working on an entirely new site in an entirely separate approach. Obviously, the requirements for that site are much different, so they're using an entirely different platform for it. But similarly, I think it's going to have a clean look and feel that'll be 21st century, so that'll be really, really nice. And I believe, I checked, and I believe that what's going to happen is that the old trust site, once it becomes the old trust site, will have something similar to what the old IAOC site has, where there'll be a banner indicating that it's been, it remains in place. But for current information, go look at the whatever the URL is for the new website. Laura's been part of this, so she's been nodding. What is there something else to add?
No, that was a good summary. But yeah, they're planning to keep all the trust stuff on the trust site because of all the links and stuff in various documents and etc. Trying not to complicate things.
Mm-hmm. Great. Anything else to say about that, or?
Liz is working on the website and she's getting close. The content transfer is taking a little while, of course, and she's busy with agendas right now, but it is underway and fingers crossed soon.
Thanks. Okay, I've paused. I guess the last thing in this section, there we go. The last thing in this section is just, I'd be interested in a quick thought about these meetings in general. I think this is about the fourth or fifth one of these that we've had in terms of interim. As you can see, we have a very hearty core of people who join. And I do know from YouTube that other people watch at least some of these afterwards, so that's fantastic. But I just wanted to open the conversation to see if there are other things we should be thinking about in terms of getting the word out on LLCCOMMS activities. Just as a recap, the kind of arrangement we set up after the first couple one of these is that we would hold them during we would hold them interim meetings during months in which there were no in-person IETF plenary meetings, so that so that we would meet like in total maybe 8 times a year, because inevitably at the end of the year or the beginning of the year we don't have one. So yeah, so I just want to check in, see what people think about how things are going, ideas for getting the word out or sharing the information in a different way, because that's really the purpose of these. Yeah.
I think the cadence is good, and it's useful as an information sharing primarily. Pardon me, getting over a cold. Maybe you or Jay mentioned it at a plenary once or twice that we have these, and that we'll see who. Because people who go to the plenary tend to also be folks who are into IETF process and admin wonks. So, just a suggestion.
Yeah.
So I learn about these meetings through the Admin Discuss mailing list.
Mhm.
Do meeting announcements go in to other places?
Yes, they weren't originally, but they are now announced on the IETF announce as, or maybe I should say it this way. They're announced as the same way that other interims are announced. So I think that includes sending to the IETF announce list. And then kind of and discuss subscribe to that probably are more likely to join.
Yeah, I joined from the wrong browser, so I'm introducing Echo. I apologize. They're on the upcoming meetings page for the data tracker as well, so you can just subscribe to them.
Yeah, I'm subscribed, and that's great because they're just on your calendar. Thinking of other ways to maybe promote this, what Rich said about plenaries made me think. So the IAB and ISG have a written report that goes out before every meeting that is not goes out by email, but then is also included as part of the plenary proceedings. Not necessarily presented in the plenary itself, but would it be helpful to have some sort of comms report that is included in the plenary proceedings for each meeting?
That's an interesting idea. I need to think about it a little bit more. Haven't thought about meeting proceedings as a channel. Yeah, it's good. It's a good idea. Probably want to circle with Jay on that. Robert, does the tools team do something like that now? Yeah. Okay.
No, we are only sending reports when there's an incident to report on.
Okay.
But you do also get, the tools team also does get notice in the, as part of the regular plenary every time. Here was the code sprint and people are aware of it and the mailing list is promoted or mentioned.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's just the plenary is interesting. I hadn't really thought about that. Plenary meetings, that is. So we'll think some more about that.
Yeah,
And
just
we'll-
having a sentence, noting that there are roughly monthly interim meetings on the thank you slide for these groups if people want to participate. It could be a way to get eyes.
I won't take too much time, but I had a brainstorm idea, which means it's not a bad idea because I preface this with brainstorm. We could have, how you have social media account takeovers by people? I could have the tools team table takeover by the comms, and for an hour during the IETF week, have the fun comms people take over the serious tools team table.
I will
Okay.
come up and ask really obscure questions about XML to RFC just to hear how you answer them.
I love it because that would be great because the tools team table will be positioned right next to the RFC editor table, and I will point people over there for those answers.
Gene, answer your own question. Okay.
Yeah, though I wonder, so RFC editor table open. This is really a question. I'm going to say it as a statement. RFC editor table fields questions about internet draft authoring. Question.
Sometimes
Okay.
we'll have people come up and ask questions about XML or Markdown, how to use some of the tools like author tools. So we do get some tools questions.
Okay. Another brainstorm would be like a internet draft sprint where people just show up and everybody during a 2-hour or 3-hour focus at the end of it, they have some form of internet draft. They work through the tool set and they can get an internet draft out. Just an idea. For free. You get that idea for free. Cool. Okay, well, these are all really good ideas. Is there anything else about getting the word out, or?
Do you have your own mailing list? So Tools has Tools Discuss, RPC has RFC Interest. Do you have a comms interest list?
No. Again, in the spirit of brainstorming, great idea. Especially if it had open archives and people could get pointed to those. Yeah, that's a great idea. Okay, cool. Well, that's been really helpful. Thank you for the ideas and playing along. I'm going to work through, there are only a few other items, and I realized one of the headings has no information under it because I just forgot to put information there. But I wanted to flag that I'm working with, especially with Deb Cooley, but other folks, to really flesh out some working group chair resources. Of course, we have chairs.ietf.org, but we've had a conversation with a new working group chair and have been looking at things like the W3C, how they organize their, not really onboarding materials, have been talking to various ADs and have started a kind of a flow chart to help us understand how to structure specific information materials. Part of this is just kind of putting together pointers to existing materials in a place. So it's not, the idea is to not duplicate materials that already exist and that are updated independently, but rather provide sort of an index, organized in a way that helps people understand how or where to find it. So yes, so we published a getting started on Get Started page on the Chairs Wiki, which I'll drop in here to the chat and add to the notes, which is sort of a very version 0.1 flavor of this. So I'll be working with Deb some more to get that further fleshed out. The next thing is collateral. I just wanted to flag that Stephanie McCammon and I worked together on this the first ever in the world IETF sponsorship report. It's linked from the notes. Check it out. Debbie's clapping. Thank you. Stephanie did a great job, and it's been really, really, really well received by sponsors, especially global hosts, which is fantastic because they can then use it to make the case within their own organizations to continue supporting the IETF, and also to as nudges to potential new sponsors as well, so people can see which organizations are supporting the IETF how, and oftentimes peer pressure is the best way to get new support. So that was a bit of a lift because it was the first one ever, but we're already talking about what to do and how to do it better for the 2025 report. So that's really good. Real quickly, other documents that are underway. Snapshot, we've done one of these for each of the last 3 or 4 years, and these are just like stats pulled together. Thanks to Robert and Ryan Cross of the Secretariat team for helping get the stats behind those, and especially with a lot of other moving parts going on. I'll say one of the things that we're tweaking this year is to really to add a few new elements that focus on the ways in which IETF participation doesn't require coming to an IETF meeting, and people can be really effective. And the reason that is a special emphasis is because when the chair, Roman, for example, goes and talks to people who are outside the IETF, They have a model of participation in places like the UN where you have to be in the room to actually have a voice. And so it takes some statistics and stories to really make the point that in the IETF, you don't have to be in the room to be effective. And that's, it's just a different mental model. And so it actually, if just saying that's true doesn't get people to actually understand it. So having things like, I'm making this up, but like 50% of RFC authors never attended an in-person IETF meeting. So again, the point is IETF participation is available to people who, for whatever reason, can't afford it, difficult to travel, don't come to IETF meetings. It still can be effective. Case studies, we did one of these for DNS. We're looking at one for gaming and L4S. And the idea here is kind of like the technology section where we're converting work of the IETF into actual real world impact. And then we're also working on other materials like some updated sponsorship recruitment materials. There's one other thing I just thought about, some more templates. So for example, like these are very small level efforts, but we're finding gaps like the IAB doesn't have, as far as I know, Cindy, you correct me, doesn't have like an outward facing template for Google Slides. So especially with the new outreach coordinator in the IAB, we thought it'd be good to have that kind of template and overview presentation. That is it. I'm sorry, I feel like I've done a lot of talking. I appreciate your patience and questions and ideas. Is there anything else that we should discuss or talk about? Okay, I just kind of just look slowly, so maybe the answer is no. And with that, I guess I'll just thank everybody for joining again. I really appreciate it. Always good to get ideas and have conversation. And yeah, hope to see many of you online or in person for IETF 122.
Yep.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks.
Safe
Bye,
travels,
all.
everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
See you in Bangkok.
Yep.
Yep.
See you, Bob.